I request all the audience, since we are last 2 days we are here, very interesting session, very knowledge driven session was going on, and we are heading now the last session of this conference is going on. Very important that Mr. Raghav Kapra as well as Mr. Chandanji will be guiding us how the green capital, IPO, foreign collaborations is going to be help us for the companies which are venturing into the IPO market, as well as going for the foreign collaboration, as well as the green capital fundraising. So they will be guiding us very thoroughly, and definitely it will be good for all of us, for the industry stakeholders. This session is going to be, so I would request all the audience to be over here today. Kindly pay your, yeah. With this, I would like to call the moderator of this session, which is Mr. Raghav Kapra, Chief Operating and Innovation Officer, Raghav Productivity Enhancers. Mr. Raghav Kapra is officer at the Raghav Productivity Enhancer, is a post-graduation from the ISB Hyderabad and MBA from London's Business School as well. Driving future growth engines at the Raghav Productivity. He leads the entire sales and marketing efforts worldwide. Over to you, Raghavji. Please be on the dais.
Thank you, Pramodji, for the wonderful introduction. Thanks a lot. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to invite Mr. Sanjay Mehta ji on the stage, on the dais. Mr. Sanjay Mehta ji, as everyone knows, and I would like to invite Mr. Chandan Lahoti, partner AVA Insights. CA Chandan Lahoti, with over 20 years of experience in auditing MNCs and listing entities, leads AVA's ESG service line. He specializes in sustainability assurance, ESG reporting and carbon credit trading, guiding organizations in carbon accounting, energy efficiency and sustainable business integration. Post that, we also have Mr. Puneet Paliwal, who is not available physically, but he will be giving a video presentation post all of the presentations are over. So I'd like to start this session with a presentation about green capital, IPOs and foreign collaborations, particularly taking insights of what has been our journey at Raga Productivity within the capital market space. We've been listed for about almost 9.5 years now, and I'd like to give you some insights of what we have seen, how can the capital markets through the IPO route help steel companies grow, create massive wealth for themselves as well as for the industry per se, and how does green capital come into this entire picture along with it. So I believe that there is a new paradigm in play currently in the world. Sustainable capital is not just a theme which is discussed in conferences like these, but in reality it actually is there that foreign investors, Indian investors, a lot of funds have particular mandates to invest in companies that are sustainable, that are part of the circular economy, and in some way are giving back to the society. We have dealt with a lot of funds when we present our company to investors, wherein they specifically ask us whether your company provides material to very high carbon generating industries such as the blast furnace route, whereas we tell them that we are supplying to induction furnace route, which is the greenest way to make steel. And that actually helps us out a lot. So I believe for most of the people sitting here having induction furnaces, this sustainable route through the green steel production that all of you guys do, it's a massive power play that you have in your hand, which you don't even know right now, is going to help you further raise capital, get into the IPOs and get into the capital markets and get better valuations at the end of the day. Global collaboration is also part of this entire process. We know for ourselves, having a technical collaboration with JWK of Sweden, that it was only possible because we were an organized listed player in the Indian setup. That gives a lot of confidence to foreign entities to collaborate with Indian companies. Otherwise, just a standalone company with no corporate governance, it's very difficult for foreign people to collaborate with you guys. So being listed, it helped us out quite a lot over there. A bit about ourselves. So Raga Productivity and Answers Limited, we were a family enterprise back then. Today we are the world leaders in silica rimming mass manufacturing. Silica rimming mass is a critical consumable which is used for lining of induction furnaces in India and abroad. We have a capacity of about 0.4 million tons as of the date, which is growing, which is going to grow considerably in the next 2 years to come. Our plants are spread across approximately 2 lakh square meters. It's a state-of-the-art, fully automated plant. Currently, we are at market cap of about 4.5 thousand crores. And the interesting part is that we started out with just 28 crores when we IPO'd back then. So it's been a remarkable journey for us in the listed space. I will give you, after this, you'll see some slides about how a lot of companies like ours, within the steel space itself, have multiplied their valuations post the IPO. Our journey is clearly visible over here in terms of how the stock price has moved. We've been very fortunate to have distinguished investors, such as late Mr. Rakesh Jhunjhunwala, Mr. Ramesh Damani of DMart, and so on and so forth. Enhanced governance framework is the key of how we have been able to differentiate ourselves with the other companies in our particular industry. Rimming mass was a very unorganized, commoditized market. We came across as a player who was organized, dealing fairly, with proper metrics, with proper sustainability and governance initiatives that we had taken. And that actually helped us out with when we went to take money from the investors, from the entire community at play. And I believe it's not just the domestic investors, but the foreign investors as well. It helped us strengthen our market position. From a very small company back then, we were able to become the world leaders in this industry. And having that organized tag helped us out, not just during the marketing, when we or my team was going out and spreading the name of our company, but also to get the confidence of the customers and the stakeholders in the industry. Now, as these days IPOs are a very hot topic, a lot of companies are either planned to go for the IPO or have some questions about it in their minds of how to think about it. So some insights about how we thought when we were going for the IPO and some companies that we have helped go for the IPO in the listed space right now. Firstly, it's about institutionalization, getting your governance points spot on very early. Set of independent directors is very necessary. Getting a good reputed audit firm, audit committees before the IPO filings is very necessary. A mindset shift needs to happen that the reporting that you are doing in terms of your numbers has to be absolutely top notch, free of any blemishes. It has to be the kind wherein everyone can feel that whatever numbers that you're giving, they're actually true and they're not made up. And once that confidence comes in, and once you're able to grow your company from there, the multiples and the valuations increase multifold. The strengthening of the financial systems in part and process of the same. Crafting a clear equity story. Now, moats is a clear part of it, ESG is a clear part of it. हर इन्वेस्टर हमारे पास जब आता है तो एक ही चीज़ पूछता है कि आप आगे क्या करने वाले हो, अभी तक जो कर लिया वो तो बहुत बढ़िया, आगे क्या करने वाले हो. और ये जो स्टोरी टेलिंग है ना, ये सबसे ज़्यादा ज़रूरी है. आपने अभी एक प्लांट लगाया, उसमें आपके 2 भट्टी चल रही है, आपका प्लान है इसको 6 भट्टी करने का. वो प्लान आप सामने वाले को किस तरीके से एक्सप्लेन करते हो, कैसे आप उसका रोड मैप सामने वाले को दिखाते हो, एंड द अदर पर्सन कैन बिलीव बेस्ड ऑन योर पास्ट एक्सपीरियंसेस एंड योर पास्ट रिजल्ट्स कि दिस इज अ प्रमोटर हु व्हाटएवर ही इज सेइंग इज एबल टू डिलीवर ऑन दैट. And if you're able to do that in a very professional way, then it's going to be very, very good. Engaging the right advisors. I would stress upon this point quite a lot. मार्केट में बहुत अच्छे लोग भी हैं, बहुत गेम करने वाले लोग भी हैं. So engaging the right advisors is extremely important, be it the market maker, the lead managers of the IPO that you're planning to do. It could be very large companies such as Motilal Oswal or very boutique investment firms which are based in small tier 2 cities as well. Going for either is a personal choice, but I would say that they need to understand your industry. They need to understand the kind of investor sentiment that you want to present to very, very well. And they need to understand your numbers well. उनको खुद को आपकी स्टोरी पे बिलीफ होना चाहिए. वरना बहुत लोग हैं मार्केट में जो कहेंगे कि हम इतना वैल्यूएशन पे आपका IPO कर देंगे, इतना वैल्यूएशन पे आपका IPO कर देंगे. But then eventually it does not go through. So it's very critical. Word of mouth is the only way. You should ask people around you कि भाई किससे लेकर आए हो, how was the experience, and that should be the way to go forward about that. As I said earlier, the promoter mindset needs to be there. आपने एक बार मन में सोच लिया कि it's not just about the IPO in itself, it's about what's going to happen after the IPO. Only then that you should be going towards the IPO. Which is why this slide of mine about creating value through the IPO, not just from it. पब्लिक मार्केट्स में आप एक बार आते हो तो फिर आपके जो भी डिस्क्लोजर्स रहते हैं उसमें बहुत ट्रांसपेरेंसी की जरूरत रहती है. आपने जो चीज़ें बोला अगर आपने करके दिखाया तो फिर आपकी वैल्यूएशन बहुत ज़बरदस्त बढ़ती है. हम लोग एक क्लियर एग्जाम्पल है इस चीज़ के ऑफ वाई दी public markets are giving us the valuations that they're giving us is because we have delivered on what we have said that we are going to do. And if you're able to do that, then it's absolutely great. Being a listed company gives you strategic capital access. We did a preferential round about 2 years back, getting in major investors I named before. That was possible because we were in the listed space. It gives you the access to foreign collaborations with much higher companies as compared to yourself. We have given out ESOPs to our employees. ESOPs is a great way to attract talent as well as retain your critical talent. हम उनको 5 साल का ESOP देते हैं, 5 साल तक हमको पता है कि वो कहीं नहीं जाने वाले, और प्लस उनकी वेल्थ जनरेट होती है जैसे जैसे कंपनी की वेल्थ जनरेट होती है. And because you're a listed company, those ESOPs are liquid. So as soon as they get them, they can encash them immediately. And they understand it very well that when the company is growing through their efforts, they will be rewarded. And the wealth that is generated in ESOPs is incomparable to whatever salaries that you can offer these guys. End of the day, the goal is very simple, long-term wealth creation. I think everyone over here is about that. और capital markets के through जो long-term wealth creation का possibility है, वो endless है. उसमें कोई limit नहीं है. And that is why I think the IPOs in the entire capital markets are very hot right now. I think they will continue to be hot in the future as well. These were some pointers from my side to think about it. Some things that we have done at Raga Productivity in terms of corporate governance, in terms of excellence. We have a fantastic board. It's not just the promoters, me, my dad and my uncle who takes decisions for the company, but we have a proper functioning board which has some of the leaders of the industry. Mr. Hemant Narudkar, the ex-MD of Tata Steel, he is currently the chairman of TRL Krosaki Refractories, one of the largest refractory companies in the country. Mr. Amar Daltani, he is the ex-ED at Corporation Bank. Mrs. Rajni Sekri Sibbil, an ex-IS officer. Mr. Govind Sabu, CA as well as a merchant banker himself. Now it's a mix of people from the industry, from the banking side, from the bureaucratic side as well as from the financial side. Now whatever advice we get from these people helps us out to make much better decisions, grow out our vision. और एक चेक लग जाता है. क्या होता है फैमिली एंटरप्राइजेज में लाला कंपनीज के अंदर प्रोमोटर ही सारे डिसीजंस ले रहा है और कोई चेक नहीं है उसको इन प्लेस. इंडिपेंडेंट डायरेक्टर्स हैव नो शेयर होल्डिंग इन द कंपनी. दे आर जस्ट देयर सो दैट यू डोंट टेक डिसीजंस व्हिच आर हार्मफुल टू योर ओन सेल्फ. एंड इट्स अ ग्रेट वे टू एक्सेल इन द कॉर्पोरेट गवर्नेंस फील्ड. Being in the listed space has also given us access to fantastic avenues of R&D through which we have been able to significantly better our product year on year as well as get into newer industries. We have a DSIR recognition which is, we are part of only 1800 or 1900 companies in India who have a recognition by the government of India to have an in-house R&D center of excellence. We are the only one in the mineral space. We have an international collaboration with JWKAB Sweden as well as current ongoing research projects at IIT Bombay. इसके साथ साथ ही we have also made a technical advisory board. this is different from the board of directors. These are the technical board that we have, which includes Mr. Graham Cooper as well as Mr. Jan Schellberg, both industry veterans. We like to call ourselves a green company, and we have done several initiatives to be able to call ourselves a green company with regard to how we are able to increase the energy efficiency for steel plants, extend lining life, compliant operations with the National Green Tribunal. We are a circular economy wherein we have a tie-up with Hero MotoCorp in Jaipur to reclaim the waste lining that come in, as well as solar energy as well. So we are very compliant on that part. All of these things are very small items which you can also implement in your plants, but they help you out a lot when you are going ahead and talking about this to investors. Just my last slide. The future paradigm is very simple. Green capital gives you a competitive edge. Today's date and age, environmental sustainability is not just about corporate philanthropy. Today's day and age, you can actually get capital at better rates, at better valuations, if you are following the ESG metrics. ESG is environmental, social, and governance. IPO is not just about selling your stock and getting money out of it. It is actually a way to enhance yourself, be more institutionalized, be more corporate, be more professional in your workings, and give more transparency. जितने ज़्यादा आप ट्रांसपेरेंट हो गए उतना ही ज़्यादा आपके लिए काम करना इजी हो जाने वाला है, क्योंकि आपको बाकी सब चीज़ों में दिमाग ही नहीं लगाना फिर. And today is the age of collaboration about global relevance. We have showcased how global partnerships have helped us grow massively in this space, and I think it's a cue for everyone. And I'll be happy to take questions post this. Next, I would like to call Mr. Chandan Lahoti on the dais for his presentation, and post that we can have a question answer round as well. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I think so. This would be the last session for this wonderful 2 days of MRAI conference. I think so. Till now, we were discussing on steel manufacturing, green steel, sustainability, everything. I think so. Correct. But everything is important, and everything can be done only if we have money. And next 10 odd minutes I will discuss only about money, any shape and form. Okay? So the first important point I want to make is whether we should go for an IPO, whether we should go for a friends and family money, or we should go for a bank funding. I think so. First important thing to know, what are risks for friends and family money, bank debts, and an IPO. Once we make a mind, okay, I'm clear, I want to go with a IPO money, then I think so is the steps what I will cover. In my next all slides, I will only cover about last 20 years, the mistakes which promoters have done before IPO. I think so Raghav very well covered. Once you are an IPO company or you're a listed company, what are things you need to do? A lot of planning was done, but I think so as an organization he covered a lot of things what they are doing. I will just deep dive on all the matters before IPO. If you are a 50 crores company turnover wise, if you are a 1,000 crore company turnover wise, if you are a profitable company, if you are a loss making company, whether your PBT is 10%, 5%, EBITDA 5, 10, 15%, how you need to showcase from an IPO perspective. We'll cover all those aspects. So first, definitely bank loan, you give your personal borrowing, personal guarantees. If you take up money from your friends and family, it's always वो दुखती एक तलवार रहती है अपने अंग में कि यार दे नहीं पाए तो क्या, ठीक है? And an IPO money is something which is a totally without interest, no personal guarantee, and hence people try to see that this is something which we should go for. But there are various nuisances which we will discuss upon an IPO. First important, what over the period companies has gone for an IPO is a value creation. If you believe you want to create some value out of the companies which you have done, this is, you can think of an IPO. Okay, and there are many more issues. So for example, next generation business में आना नहीं चाहती है, उनको स्टील के कंपनी में नहीं काम करना है, sophisticated jobs करने या sophisticated large companies में जाने. You don't have a next generation. What? Through an IPO, whether you want to make money is also being discussed. And once you have a good IPO, definitely you have an IPO or a listed company, you get good of resources. So second, for resources also, it's very image enhancement, all of us know, versus a private limited company, we call ourselves as a listed company, that benefits are there. The more you are a listed company, corporate governance is very important, and you need to make a mind कि अपना वो individual business नहीं रहा. It becomes a public limited company or answerable for a lot of people. That you need to ESOP, I think so, Raghav discussed a lot about ESOP, but I think so, ESOP is one of the best tool to retain best of the talent in the company. 20 साल 25 साल के भी पुराने जो अपने एक right hand left hand होते थे business में, to retain them, there is an ESOP pool. Without giving them ownership, they get shares. It's a power in ESOP. Balance sheet substantially get improved because right now आप जो सारे most of the company जो accounting करते वो Indian GAAP के हिसाब से करते हैं. Ind AS is a fair value accounting, and if you go for an IPO, it becomes a fair value accounting. So that way balance sheet strong होती है आपकी, management control, low cost of capital. In a way, there is no cost of capital for a fund which you raise because you need not pay an interest, and whenever you offset your stake 15-25% as the case may be, anyways you get value for it. So normally from an IPO perspective, I will break the IPO into 4 phases from a timeline perspective. Planning phase 6 to 12 months. If you are planning an IPO today, you will require minimum 18 months. Whatever says कि 6 महीने में हम IPO लाके दे देंगे. So as Raghav said, there is 2 methods. एक जुगाड़, एक real essence. If you want to go really in essence with a good corporate governance company, it takes 18 months minimum. Planning stage is 6 to 12 months. It takes due diligence of 2 to 6 months. Pre-marketing, lot of marketing is required from an IPO perspective, and then definitely IPO 1 or 2 weeks. Lot of rules and regulation which were stringent has been reduced. So comparatively, आज से 15 साल पहले IPO लाना, and today, if you want an IPO, it's way different. It's practically possible. We see a lot of even 100 to 300 crore companies are going for an IPO, and that is possible. And I'm talking about main board. Even if you are 300 crore company as a turnover, you can go for a main board IPO. It's not there, अरे मेरे को ऐसे में IPO में जाना है. So few things which you need to know, and whatever you choose. So most important is choosing the right consultant when you go for an IPO, which is most important, because you should have one person under whose guidance you are working in an IPO, because there are multiple. आपने देखा इधर there is no place in the slide to add the name of the people who are involved in an IPO, but that first lead manager, what we call, okay, which is a key person or a key advisor who guides you on an IPO, then definitely you require a merchant banker. तुम्हारे बहुत सारे registrations करने पड़ेंगे, financial overview. You require, for example, if you have an India, outside India clients, you require a global counsel. अगर global lawyer लगेगा, from an Indian lawyers लगेंगे, definitely you need printers, you need registration with NSE, BSE, etc. Okay. So I'll just spend a minute on this slide, which is most important. At times in my career of last 15 years, where I've dealt with a lot of listed companies, what I've seen, 5 days to 15 days before IPO, between DRHP and your filing, there are a lot of litigations which come to you. Why? Because there are people who are just want money from you so that At the stage where you are in a crucial stage from an IPO perspective, they'll file some complaints, they'll file some cases, etc. So the most important part, rights right of no omission on material facts. So to your consultant, you need to inform everything. 20 साल पहले कुछ तो किसी को तो कुछ कमिट किया होगा, कुछ एग्रीमेंट बनाया होगा, कुछ डीलरशिप दिया होगा, डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन दिया होगा, there was some loose terms being used, inform. Because what happens at the time of an IPO, the most important part is these 5-7 days before IPO, if any facts which come to the market, which is negative and deterioration to your financial statement or the company, on that day of the IPO, it becomes a nightmare. So that's most important, that inform everything. Even if there was a smallest of case going on or which were in past, you need to inform. Because there is a document which says you need to inform it. अब 300 pages का DRHP होता है, कौन वो सब पढ़ने वाला है? But if you inform in that document, then there is no issue. And it has to be drafted well so that you don't have a risk. Okay. So normally basis experience, there are a lot of items which one need to know. Project management office definitely. Bonus, I think so before IPO a lot of planning is required. So for example, कैसे structure बनाए, कैसे maximum wealth creation करें. So bonus is something which can be planned before IPO. Dividends, how you need to strategize dividends. Buyback of shares. From an auditor perspective, you need to choose the right auditor because the firm should be a peer review firm. Whether split conversion. Most important part, as all of you would be knowing, either you might have an individual business, partnership business, or a private limited, correct? Most of you will have that structure. So how do it structure? If you're an individual and if you create a private limited, what to do on taxation? If you have multiple entities, I see when I visit a lot of places across India for the steel makers, I see every owner has 2 or 3 different companies or stakes some or other companies. How do you accumulate all and take to an IPO? All this planning need to be done. Otherwise what will happen? There is a huge taxation. Because for example, you have a private limited, you have a individual companies, there are 2-3 companies, and it comes under the one umbrella. At that point of time, definitely taxation is there because it need to be planned well. Okay? Independent director, right choice of an independent director is important. Succession planning, HUF. Many of you have an HUF as a structure. Definitely you have a succession planning. You have 2-3 brothers, there are uncles who are holding shares in that company. You have a daughter. You need to manage all those things. Actually, from an IPO perspective, because I have seen several companies or the groups post IPO, when the value creation is there, there is a difference of opinion between a lot of the family members. So it has to be planned very well. Internal transfers from companies, etc. Then you have less of liberty to sell, purchase, transfer of money from one entity to other entities. That is not practically possible later. Restructuring, clubbing, etc. need to be done. If you need to change name, it has to be done mandatorily 12 months before. You need to start branding of that name, brand. Weighted average cost of acquisition is very important because all those details are required. Senior management personnel, you need to inform that who are your senior management personnel of the company which need to be go in the DRHP. Authorized share capital change, promoters. The latest change which is impacting a lot is the promoters definition has expanded. So earlier you believe मैं मेरे पिताजी, मेरा बच्चा, मेरी wife is a promoter. No, the definition has significantly expanded, and any of you, the close relatives who is holding the share becomes a promoter, and there is lot of restrictions on promoter holding. So for example, pre-IPO and 12 months post-IPO, the promoters which is defined in the RHP document can't sell their shares for next 12 months. So it's very important to carve out an IPO in such a way that all those planning need to be done so that the tomorrow when you need to have a robust things, it can be planned well. KPI identification and data availability is most key, and which is handed over directly to the consultant, which is not right thing. So as an IPO, and as Raghav said, storytelling. IPO क्यों आपके कंपनी में कोई पैसा डालेगा? There has to be storytelling, and in storytelling, KPI is most important. Why you are doing an IPO? What you will do out of these funds? Where you will deploy these funds? How much you are taking to your home? How much you are investing in company? Why your valuation is better off as compared to the markets? P ratio, share market में तो मेरे हिसाब से सब पैसा लगाते होंगे ये, तो P ratio ये concept everyone of you are aware. So before IPO, why you should get a better of P ratio as compared to the markets? How better off go in the market and get a better rate? So there is all road shows, etc. But before road show, storytelling is important. Two people should get convinced about your story. One is you yourself in any shape and form, and second, definitely your advisor who is advising you. He should get convinced to your story कि ये story बिकनी है. Index conversion, which is a nightmare for the finance teams. आपके किस finance के लोगों को पूछोगे वो accounts, अपने accounts अप्रैल मई में sign होते हैं? नहीं, सितंबर में ही होते हैं. तो उसके साथ ये Index, which is an IFRS equivalent, which is mandated for any IPO in India, is a nightmare for most of the finance teams. And I can tell you, when I visited a lot of steel plants and so they are not aware of an Index. So it has to be early planned well, so that they are aware equally what is Index and how convergence happen. And last 3 years, your all financial statements are restated. That's a mandatory thing from an IPO perspective. Next 2-3 slides, I will just cover up on the structuring part. So for example, how an existing structure can be converted into an IPO related structure from your friends and family. किसको कब exit देना है? At times अपने इसमें structure में there are 4-5 family members, किसी को 2%, किसी को 5%, ये सब equity shares are there. So it need to be planned well, because what happens I will tell you. So for example, you given an exit to, so एक बुआ जी के पास 5% शेयर इस कंपनी के है, example, and you don't want them to be forming part of an IPO. But whenever you sell the shares or give them exit, उनको टैक्स लगता है. वो शेयर्स आए थे उनके पास 10 रुपए में, आज वो 500 रुपए के शेयर्स है, उनको एग्जिट देना है तो उनके अकाउंट में टैक्स आएगा. Because you are selling those shares, and immediately that cash need to be paid. Now it has to be structured well. So all the structuring is possible, wherein tax neutral कैसे करें और best of the tax efficient way में कैसे IPO में जाए. Because what at times happen, a promoter और एक ओनर को IPO चाहिए, बट ये सारे प्लानिंग पहले अगर नहीं किए तो मिडल ऑफ द IPO दे फेस प्रॉब्लम, और एट द एंड ऑफ द IPO दैट टाइम इट्स दे कांट डू एनीथिंग, क्योंकि IPO में जाना और एडिशनल खर्चा होता है. तो पहले पूरा बेटर प्लानिंग करके किया हुआ इज ऑलवेज बेटर फ्रॉम एन IPO. बट दिस इज अ टूल वेयर जो भी आपको लोगों को एग्जिट देना है तो आप दे सकते हो. जरूरी नहीं अपने को सबको आगे लेके जाना है, स्ट्रक्चर में लेके जाना है तो वेल एंड गुड. सो लार्जली अगर आप देखोगे टैक्सेस को ध्यान रखना पड़ता है. स्टैम्प ड्यूटी इज समथिंग विच इज एप्लीकेबल इन दिस एंड लॉट ऑफ अकाउंटिंग एस्पेक्ट्स. फ्रॉम इफ यू सी माई 19th bullet point, okay, I put a very large range of 3% to 12%. I've seen even 2%. What does that mean? So for example, your company is valued as per valuation 2000 crore, and minimum now there is a threshold that 25% of your equity आपको dilute करना पड़ता है. तो 2000 का 25% dilute करना है means 500 crores हो गया. So 500 crores का 2%, 3%, 10%, all those cost is there, which includes everything. 18 महीने के सारे कंसल्टेंट, सारे कंपनी, NSE, BSE मिलके खर्चा है. The more the smaller the size of an IPO. SME IPO में 8-10, 5-10, 8-10, 12% जाता है. Main board means if your valuation is more than 1000 crores plus, कंपनी का valuation, the cost goes down below 5, 4, 5-6%. इतना अभी मार्केट में रेट चल रहा है, बट इट्स देयर. एंड आई कैन टेल यू the like Raghav gave an example of Motilal Oswal or boutique firms, etc. So India mein HDFC is one of the most stringent. The bankers, Motilal Oswal, I will rate in between a decent size firms. So जो भी new size firms जैसे Motilal Oswal, IIFL, ये वो सब कोटक विटक जो आप सुन रहे हो, these are still a balanced mid-size bankers and the boutique firms. So it totally depend कि हमें IPO कितना बड़ा लेके जाना है. So anything between 300-400 crore valuation, 2,000, 1,500 crores, you can go with the boutique firms. If you want to go for an IPO of 5,000 crore plus, then definitely you need multiple merchant bankers. क्योंकि उतना उनका commitment रहता है. So as a merchant banker, they sign off along with you that I have checked everything and everything is fine. Auditors तो सिर्फ financial statement related सारी चीजें check करेंगे, which is 80% of the IPO. But merchant banker does every other things also कि उनको deep diligence करना होता है. And hence auditor and merchant banker both becomes a crucial. But the advisor who advise you to accumulate and collect everyone together and answer to all is key person from your IPO perspective. So key learnings and mistakes from a lot of other IPOs which you need to ये clarity नहीं है. Within a minute I will do. There is no clarity or which gets at a later point of time. It takes huge time from an IPO perspective. Other regulatory risk etc. काफ़ी आ जाते हैं. From a mindset change perspective, you have a lot of things what need to be done. And I think so corporate governance. If you are going for an IPO, my humble request is there would be significant change in your corporate structure. You can't issue checks right, left, center as you are doing now, considering our own money. Later it's a public money, and hence that's very crucial to know. I think so structuring considerations we discussed. Okay, the last slide and the last point what I want to discuss on, you need to be clear on objective of an issue, which I think so we started as a discussion. What you will do with these funds, that is most important, and that is a storytelling in an IPO which is required. So first is long term working capital requirement है या value creation करके घर पे पैसा लेके जाना है. Second is whether you need it for investment in a subsidiary or more expansion, brand building, new expansion plan within the plants, general corporate purpose, repayment of existing loan is also allowed if you are planning to go for an IPO perspective, and how to meet the expenses of an IPO. I thought let me speak about IPO first and then about me, my firm. That is what I thought. So we are a CA firm having 850 people across India. We do all non-traditional CA practice, which includes sustainability also. We are a 20 years old firm. Most of the partners in the firm were working in Big Four, PwC, EY over last 20 odd years, and we are a full stack firm. Overall, from digital transformation to sustainability, to IPO, to taxation, to internal audit, to statutory audit, valuation to startup is something what we do. And why we do this is what we believe a company requires a right set of consultant who can provide all things under one roof so that they need not find different people for different types of services. And hence, as a firm, we try to provide best of the solutions for our client. And a few of the clients across India where we work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chandanji, for a very detailed and comprehensive presentation about IPOs. It's a topic very close to my heart as well. So thank you so much for that. To take the conversation forward, I would like to ask a few questions. When do you think, or how would you gauge whether a company is truly IPO ready as of now? and then you can go ahead with all of the processes that you just said. When do you think that is the case?
So from an IPO perspective, I think so. Mindset is most important, I think so. If you are clear in your mindset कि मुझे IPO में जाना है और मुझे IPO में I need to go for these 2 reasons or 1 reason. That's the first most important part. Don't be and don't do from a FOMO perspective. ये FOMO word जो Gen Z अपने सबके बच्चे हैं, उनको हम Gen Z बोलते हैं. FOMO इनमें सबसे ज़्यादा चलता है. इसने किया तो मुझे भी करना है, इसने ये चीज़ ली है तो मुझे भी करनी है. तो FOMO में IPO नहीं करना चाहिए is my first humble request and suggestions to all. Second, from a IPO readiness perspective, आज अपनी जो कंपनी है, where we have from our the generations and including us, हमने जिस पे काम किया है, ये कंपनी को हम अपने आप से डिटैच कर सकते हैं. See, one is me as an individual. Second, it's a company where public money will come. So I need to ensure when public money is coming in this company, I need to ensure a corporate governance. अगर मैं मेरी सैलरी ले रहा हूँ उस कंपनी इसमें, it has to be reasonable. If I am doing transaction between my related parties, it has to be reasonable. My personal expenses are not sitting in company. If the mindset change is there, then I think so 90% of the battle is won, because all other work can be done by the consultants.
थैंक यू सो मच. एक्चुअली हमने भी बहुत बार ये चीज़ देखा है, माइंडसेट बहुत डिफिकल्ट है. प्रॉपर फाइनेंशियल रिपोर्टिंग करना, पूरे ढंग से प्रॉफिट दिखाना. हमारे पास बहुत सारे इन्वेस्टर्स बहुत इस तरीके के क्वेश्चंस भी लेके आते हैं कि भाई आपने ये वाली गाड़ी कंपनी में क्यों खरीद ली, या ये हमारे ऑडिटर्स हमसे पूछते हैं कि आप यहाँ दुबई गए थे, या आप कंपनी की वजह से गए थे या पर्सनल गए थे, एक दिन आप अकेले घूमे कि नहीं घूमे. तो दिस काइंड ऑफ क्वेश्चंस आल्सो कम इनटू प्ले. देयर हैज़ टू बी अ स्ट्रिक्ट discipline on what is personal, what is related to the company, and it gets bifurcated that way completely. Before we go on to further questions, we have a video presentation by Mr. Puneet Paliwal. So if that can be played for the audience. Thank you.
Hello everyone. First, I want to apologize for not being able to be a part of this wonderful event. A medical emergency in my family meant that I must present remotely. I really appreciate your understanding and especially the flexibility that the organizers have shown in terms of allowing me to present at this event virtually. I'm grateful to be a part of this very important conversation, and I would encourage all of you to reach out to me in case you find any of the content that I'm going to present interesting, and if you'd like to discuss it further. Today, I'll talk about why financing is a decisive factor in green steel transition, which projects get built, with stall, and how lenders and sponsors are thinking about risks. I'll keep this practical and forward-looking in the upcoming slides. So moving on to the next slide. So this is just a quick overview of my presentation. So I'll start with a quick overview of a capacity backdrop, how steel capacities are growing and shrinking in various parts of the world. Then we will cover who invests and typical financing structures. Next, what makes green steel projects bankable from a lender's perspective. And finally, the often overlooked aspect of barriers to exit that keep excess capacity hanging around across major geographies. So I'll start with my presentation. So just to start off, a very short note on why I'm speaking from experience. So many of you know CRU, some of you might not, but CRU is the leading authority when it comes to green steel related projects that are being developed across the world. CRU has advised on several large financing and due diligence mandates. For instance, a lender market advisor role for a green steel project, which ended up raising 6.5 billion euros for a company called Stegra, a due diligence project on an iron ore financing of around 1.9 billion US dollars, and a number of advisory works that we have done on electric arc furnace, DRI, HBI projects in Europe, the GCC, and in various parts of Africa. These mandates have given us a real deal level visibility on what lenders and sponsors actually require. So first, I'll start with the big picture. So what you're seeing in front of you is a contrast between 2010 and 2025 in terms of regional divergence, especially when it comes to steel capacities. Broadly speaking, advanced economies have reduced crude steel capacity, while emerging markets have added capacity during this period. This actually changes where projects get financed and how lenders view country risks and political exposure. So when we talk about green projects, we must always tie them back to their regional context. If we zoom in, the stories differ. China and India follow different growth dynamics to the EU and the United States. The Middle East and Southeast Asia, they show especially strong capacity additions, and most of these capacity additions are often linked to integrated strategies around energy and downstream demand. That matters again because lenders treat each region's political, market, and supply risks very differently. Now, moving on to an example of how we go about with this lender market advisory, especially when it comes to projects on the green steel side. So I'll take an example of Europe because this was one of the biggest projects that we undertook. Long story short, policy is a key accelerator. In EU, many of the DRI EAF investments are concentrated from about 2030 and onwards, partly a response to the carbon framework like the carbon border adjustment mechanism that the region has come out with. However, there's a nuance. Some projects aim for green hydrogen on day one. Others plan on a staged transition away from natural gas DRI. That creates both opportunity and timing risk, particularly for financiers. So you can't just assume that it's going to be a straight line rollout in these markets. Every project has a different dynamic playing out, especially in terms of their plans of commissioning, their project scheduling, and in terms of the technology that's going to be incorporated. Having said that, the lenders usually tend to stress test projects against carbon price pathways. This deck, particularly the cost curves that you're seeing, show how rising carbon costs and phase out of free allowances by 2035 push EAF routes up to the competitiveness ladder relative to the blast furnace basic oxygen furnace based steel making route. So practically, this means that project models need multiple carbon scenarios, and lenders will want to see how resilient a project is under these different futures. So how CRU helps out and how this whole lending exercise is undertaken. So first of all, let's just think about who ends up writing that check. It ranges basically from country to country, from region to region, but usually it involves the national governments, and multilateral organizations like the development banks, the World Bank, or various other multilateral lending agencies. There are instances where commercial banks have been involved, and there are corporate sponsors as well. Now, in terms of financing options, these include corporate balance sheet financing, project finance for greenfield starts, and hybrid structures. Typical debt level that we have seen in many of the project financing activities is in the range of 40 to 60%. But structure depends on the sponsor's credibility and the country risk, which we talked about earlier. Now, there are three approaches or three common strategic routes, particularly into financing steel projects in various parts of the world. The first of these strategic routes is an asset out strategy, or which is commonly called a build first approach. It basically involves a high upfront capital expenditure, longer ramp up, but potential scale advantage. Now, the second strategy that we usually encounter, especially amongst these financing projects, is a market in strategy, which starts downstream. That is, the project owner will first start investing in a downstream project, be it coating or be it distribution, and builds customer relationships first. They are then quicker to the market, but they have limited control on the supply at the very start. But they eventually backward integrate and have better control on supply as well. Now, the third approach, which we have witnessed, especially in terms of new projects, is that there have been instances of either a restructuring or a turnaround. So
Basically, some assets are taken
over, and it essentially requires a very low upfront cost, but is reliant on a very on the opportunistic assets. So basically, if an investor is taking over an existing asset and turning it around, although the upfront cost may be low, but the opportunities will depend on the health or the quality of the asset that has been taken over. Each of these approaches implies different financing emphasis. There are covenant tightness, and at the same time, how much offtake security is required is one of the biggest questions that arise, especially in terms of project financing in such projects. Now, from a lender's perspective, if I have to put together a checklist from a lender's perspective, first and foremost, the lender is looking at location and proximity to demand centers, especially in terms of when we look at the first or second quartile position on the global cost curve, especially in terms of delivered cost, the access to low cost energy, especially renewables or green hydrogen, a confirmed feedstock and logistical agreements that should be entered into in a very robust manner, a strong sponsor with a very good track record, and commercial de-risking, such as a 5 to 7 years take or pay offtakes or for a meaningful share of the output. Importantly, lenders want evidence. You can either capture a green premium or are insulated from carbon is required, especially when we are talking about green steel projects, because high risk projects, because the technology is evolving every other day. Having said that, one final point that often gets very less airtime is that excess capacity is not only about new entrants. it's also about barriers to exit. So closure cost, particularly when it comes to aspects like economy or environmental, social, and political pressures that can come through. There can be some labor union issues. National pride is a big concern in several major economies that we have seen. So basically, national pride it disallows plants or the plants which are not profitable to keep functioning because economies of scale or jobs depend on it. Now, if we want a cleaner, more efficient sector, we need joined up policies, socialized closure costs, retaining programs, and clear transition roadmaps so that for a lender, the exit becomes feasible and it is fair. So these are some of the biggest considerations that are given in this market, especially when it comes to financing. And as I mentioned earlier, green steel projects are still a bit of a gray area and are high risk investments from a lender's perspective. So it requires significant due diligence, and every project has its own caveats that need to be looked into. So there is not a single solution for everything that we do in terms of green steel financing. Especially in our experience at CRU, we have seen multiple unrelated challenges emerging in all the projects that we have undertaken. So to wrap it all up, financing decisions are not just and not just technology choice will decide which green steel projects are delivered at scale. Sponsors need to align strategies, secure long-term energy and offtake contracts, and be transparent on emissions and costs. Lenders will continue to require strong commercial mitigation, credible sponsors, and policy clarity. With this, I close my presentation. Thank you so much for your patience with my remote delivery. I would have really liked to be a part of this conversation in person, but I'm happy to take any questions in case you want to email me or reach out to me separately. Thank you so much again to the organizers for giving me this opportunity. With this, I close this session. Thank you so much.
So that was Punitji's presentation. Before we move to the audience Q&A, I have just one last question to ask Chandanji. Chandanji, coming back to the topic of IPOs and green capital and how to transform family companies to a public company, what do you think are the biggest challenges in converting a family-run business or a partnership firm for that matter into a public company before the IPO?
I think so. Some parts I covered in my presentation, but I will break this into two parts. One is from a tax structure perspective, it is important that you structure it well so that there are a lot of tax. You don't end up paying a lot of tax. So there are structures which are available through which individual partnership firms can be converted to private limited and then the public limited from a tax structure perspective. Otherwise, there is no, otherwise it doesn't make sense to convert other than tax saving from a structure perspective. From a mindset perspective, it is important that you should start run that company as, I would say, a good corporate governance and a company which is run with a mindset that you are running it on behalf of others. You are a promoter of that company and not the sole owner. You are a promoter, not the sole owner. With that as a mindset, it need to be done. And the independent directors who are coming on the board, they are coming to give a value. So they should be also heard. Otherwise, in the board meetings, the owner will drive the show our own kids, family members will listen, but I think it's most important that a due credit is given to the independent director so that they can give a lot of value to the company. That are the shift paradigm what one need to look into it.
Thank you so much, Chandanji. Now I open the floor to the audience. If you have any questions for me and Chandanji, that we could assist you. Mic over there.
Hello. Very insight, information. My question is, foreign companies with their subsidiaries office, can they can register themselves for this thing?
Yes, possible, practically possible, because if it's a foreign company subsidiary in India, they might be holding 99.99 and 1% share. That's normally the structure in India, because there should be 2 shareholders. In that case, it just, the foreign company need to dilute 25% of their equity in India. That's a minimum criteria. And as of now, in steel or such manufacturing, all sectors, it's open. There are very limited sectors where the foreign players are not allowed, and there are some restrictions. But those are into defense, etc. But from a steel perspective or other general manufacturing, there are no restrictions.
How old should be the company?
So any company so SME IPO, it can be just even 3-4 years old company, that's fine. From a main board perspective, minimum last 3 years financials are required.
Thank you.
That is done.
Thank you.
Hello, Chandanji. Your presentation was very insightful and very contextual also, because a lot of people here who are into steel industry, most of them, and some of them also planning to file for an IPO. I have just one question, that is, from a professional point of view and from a long-term point of view, what would you suggest to your client with respect to listing? That whether should the person go for a listing at a SME platform and vis-a-vis the main platform? So could you just elucidate on the trade-off between the two?
So from an SME perspective and a main board perspective, the game is numbers, nothing else. Everyone will want to be in main board because there is a trading happening in a main board. So if your shares are listed on BSE, NSE on the main board, trading definitely happens as compared to an SME IPO. The tradings happen very limited in an SME IPO. That's point number 1. Point number 2, from a listing perspective. So for example, you are just a 25, 50, 100 crores turnover. Here I am meaning, and we are not discussing about any other numbers. It's always preferred to go for an SME IPO because there are criteria and thresholds in a main board IPO. But if you are anything above 300 or crores turnover wise company, very easily main board is possible, because 300 crore hai to 500 crore ke upar to valuation aana hai. Correct? Because you have some decent number of profits. I am talking about some 10-15 crores plus PAT jiska hai, to multiple of 30 at a PAT level. So seedha that becomes 300 plus crore valuation. So directly main board is possible.
One question. Yeah, one question on this, one follow-up question on this, that like steel basically by its nature is a blow hot, blow cold, by nature. I'll give you a small anecdote. If you walk into a garden here at ITC Grand and there are 2 benches, one is a wooden one is a steel one. On a sunny day or on a winter day, you will always sit on the wooden bench. You will not necessarily take a steel bench, because on a sunny day it will be very hot and otherwise it will be very cold. Same is the nature of the steel market also. So there's so much of volatility. So in that, how do you, maneuver yourself through this mayhem of cyclical syndrome in the steel industry with respect to steel companies?
Good. I think so. There are few companies which are cyclical in nature and they are listed. So take a sugarcane. Sugarcane industry is a cyclical in nature. If you see in India, anything between 90 days to 130 days are maximum the factories is open. Steel factories are open for 365 days. That's point number 1. From your cyclical perspective, the numbers might change on a quarterly basis. But as a valuation which is done at an annual basis, those things are factored. So, and there are many more. Quick Heal, as an example, whenever it came for an IPO, if you see their balance sheet for last 15 years, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3 loss, quarter 4 profit, 50% of the turnover. Because they are into a model where yearly money comes to them, and the accounting wise, everything sits in quarter 4. Same is for sugarcane industry. The production, supply, and revenue recognition are in different quarters. So market factor all those, and accordingly it's done.
Thank you, everyone. Any other questions? No? Okay. Okay. So now I would like to invite Vinayji, Director MRAI, to felicitate the speaker on the dais. Thank you.